Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
Okay, all right, I think we're good to go. Tom, good to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you too.
Thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
It's because somebody suggested that we have you on.
Okay.
So,
well, she has good taste.
So why don't we start with you talking about who you are, your name, who you are, and then we'll get into this plethora of things which you've done. I was on your IMDb page today. You don't have anything posted on Facebook since like 2016 that I can tell.
Well, that's because she posts the stuff on Facebook. I don't. That's my wife we're talking about.
So I should have gone to her page. So introduce yourself.
My name is Tom Seiler, and I've lived in New Hampshire for about 50 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Born in Key West, of all places.
Yeah.
I've been here since 62, 3, 4, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. You've got quite a bibliography.
Well, yes, I do. I guess we can blame my mother for that. She put me on stage at the age of 9.
Really?
And I was basically on stage for 50 years and done almost 200 plays. I've written 16 scripts for the movies, done 20 movies, and produced 6. And I spent 4 years in the New Hampshire Film Commission and 2 years as its chairman. Mm. And there's the old joke about ask an actor a question and it'll give you his resume, so I just did.
Good, well, I'm fascinated by that. So, where do you reside currently?
Joyce and I live in Dover, my wife Joyce and I.
You currently active doing anything out there?
You mean in no
theater or film?
No, basically I you know what, call it I'll say I'm semi-retired. I'm still a member of SAG, and I still go to auditions down in Boston occasionally whenever something comes up and I get a call for it. But I don't do extra work. There's plenty of extra work out there if anybody wants to do that, and some of it's becoming very well paid. Boston used to be the highest extra paid local in the country, and I think they still are. Many years ago it was $100 a day, and now I think it's even more than that. But I don't do extra work, so I don't care.
Because you, so I might as well just jump right in there. So why don't you do extra work? What's going on there?
Well, I don't do extra work because I've already done considerable principal work, and for which you get paid considerably more money. I mean, I think the after rate today for 1 day is almost $600. So we're speaking with lines. So why do extra work if you can make 10 times that?
Yeah.
Now, on the other side of that coin, if I retire and from my job and decide that I am bored and need some more money, I might go do extra work just for something to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't need to do that for my ego or anything. I've done all that.
Yeah, nice. What's the last project you worked on?
In film, it would have been about 10 years ago. Freddie Catalfo, don't know if you know who he is, an attorney in Dover, who is a prolific filmmaker of shorts. And he's fast on his way to becoming, I think, a pretty successful filmmaker and a screenwriter. He's done a number of scripts that have won a lot of film festivals. And he's now being repped out in California by CAA. And is doing. We're keeping our fingers crossed that he's going to be, picked up and do a major film here pretty soon. But the last project I did was with him, and it was called Bighorn. And Freddie writes scripts that are sometimes have a little supernatural aspects to them. And Bighorn was a particularly interesting project because if you remember, I'm not going to remember the guy's name. Some years ago, there was a Patriots.
Adam Vinatieri.
That's it, Adam Vinatieri.
I was watching the video this morning about Bighorn.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, Adam Vinatieri kicked, a 40-yard field goal or something and won the Patriots in the last 10 seconds of the game or something like that. So Freddie wrote this script that is based on a fact, which is that Adam Vinatieri's great-great-grandfather was George Armstrong Custer's band leader. And at the last minute, Custer decided that he was not going to take the band to the Little Bighorn. And had he done so, Felix might very well have been killed, and Adam never would have been born, and therefore the Patriots would never have won the playoff. So Freddie wrote this script that was based on that theory, and it involves the supernatural guy finding a trumpet that he is told that he can play anything he wants on it as long as he doesn't play the Gary Owen song. And so of course he has to play it, and he plays it, and boom, he's back at the Little Bighorn, and he winds up dying as a result of it. And I had a small part in the picture, and supplied most of the guns for it, because I also used to collect guns. And so I was an armorer as well as an actor out in L.A. And in fact, I worked on one of Robert Urich's last films as an armorer.
Really?
Yeah, a picture called Clover Bend, which nobody could remember the title of. And we're on location. I'm jumping ahead here to tell you this story because it reminded me of it. We're on location shooting Clover Bend out in Simi Valley someplace. And this old abandoned convenience store that had been partially condemned because of an earlier earthquake. So the store was still there, but it wasn't open for business, but the phone company used it, rented it. So we're all sitting out in front while they're changing the cameras and taking a break or relighting the scene or whatever. And there's 25 or 30 people standing there. Robert Urich sitting there and in his chair, and this tourists drive up and say, "What's the name of the movie?" And everybody just sort of looks at each other and goes, "It's and you know, nobody can remember the name of it." And they finally looked at Robert, who was sitting there, and he got his script, and he had to close the script to read the title of the movie too.
Really?
Clover Bend. Anyway, it was humorous at the time. But
Never heard of it still, though.
well, it's on not IMDb. It's on Netflix or Prime right now.
Really?
One of the two. One of the two.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. And if it wasn't his last film, it was really close to it. He may have done a television or something after that, but then he died shortly after that. But he was a nice guy.
Interesting.
Very interesting guy.
Wow. Good. So I just want to touch base real quick. Is Fritz Weatherby's in that? In Bighorn?
Oh, Bighorn. Yes, yeah. Fritz. I've done 2 pictures of Fritz.
I saw him in there this morning.
And I can tell you a story about that too. Years and years and years and years and years ago, when Fritz first started at Channel 11 doing the same thing he's doing on Channel 9 with the stories, he and I both auditioned for the same part at the same time.
That is interesting.
And he got it. I didn't, obviously.
Well, could have been Bighorn right there.
He has a more interesting voice than I do, I think. But, yeah, Fritz and I both auditioned for the same thing. And Freddie's first movie was called The Rockwell Code, which was based on the Da Vinci Code. And it was a satire of sorts. Well, no, definitely. And Fritz played the museum curator. If you've seen the Da Vinci Code, the guy gets murdered in the beginning of the picture. Well, Fritz played the same part. We did the same exact kind of a thing, where him running down the hall with all of the art paintings and finally getting killed. And I played the police captain. He gets called in, and it was a satire, and a half-hour satire, but it got a great deal of recognition. And I kept telling Freddie that he should send a clip of it to Spielberg, and maybe he would include it in the DVD, but he didn't, but he should have.
So let's back up to your, I assume you did stage before you did film?
Yes, as I said, my mother put me on the stage when I was 9, and I did theater for 50 years.
Locally? All in New Hampshire?
Well, no.
Well, you were born in...
I was born in Key West. I did stuff in college, and I was born in Key West, and I grew up in the Keys, Florida Keys and Marathon, and my mother put me on stage down there at the age of 9. And my first play was something called The Saturday Evening Ghost, which is about a ghost that only comes out on Saturday evening and had a taste for plum pudding. It was a very strange play. And anyway, I did stuff in Florida in college and in summer stock and in New Hampshire and in Maine and in California and in Nevada.
So where did you get? So did you get a love for theater at age 9, or did it come later? Did you just like?
No, I think I got the bug right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because after I did that one, then I did another one at the age of 10 or 11 called The Happy Haven, which was no, that's not right. Happy Time, which was a Broadway play at the time, or just come off of Broadway, and another comedy. So no, I got bit right off the bat with that. And I even did stuff. I went to a military academy, Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia, and we did Mr. Roberts and Stalag 17 and plays that all had, all male casts, pretty much. No, I've been on the stage ever since.
Did you do theater professionally, or has it just always been kind of a background hobby?
Well, now that's an interesting question. Professionally, what's the definition of professionally? I was never a member of Actors Equity, but I got paid on occasion to do theater, so if that means professionally, then yes.
Yeah.
I did stuff at the Hampton Playhouse, play called Funny Money, in which all of my lines were in Dutch.
Or that would be a challenge.
So I obviously had to learn it all phonetically. It was the most interesting 50 years I could have ever hoped for. And you went to a lot of places and met a lot of people and did a lot of different things. And the natural outgrowth of that is wanting to get into the movies and do a movie or two.
Yeah.
And back, I can't remember what year it was, 72, 3, 4, somewhere around there. They were going to make a film at Exeter, Phillips Exeter, I can't remember the title of the picture right now at the moment. John Irving, I think, wrote the book. Separate Piece. The movie was called A Separate Piece. And I got cast as an extra in that. That was my first film experience. And I remember standing there talking to the guy who was the casting director, who was someone, Lou DeGamo was his name, and reasonably well known in the business. I don't know if he's still alive or not. But, and he said, yeah, if you want to do this, you got to go to L.A., or New York. And I kept looking at New York and looking at L.A. and saying, I ain't going to New York. I'm not a city kind of guy, And L.A. is, you ever been to L.A.?
Never.
Well, L.A. is, just spread out everywhere. And so my wife and I went out to L.A. the first time in 1990 and took our first whack at the movies. And I had an agent within 2 weeks, a guy named Zoltan Cosmos.
Great name.
Yeah, Zoltan Cosmos. Zoldy was a unusual little man, to say the least. And he sent me out on a lot of auditions, but I wasn't SAG at that time. I was just AFTRA, which is American Federation of Radio and Television Artists. And he sent me out on a lot of auditions. And the funny thing about movie auditions is what it boils to, acting talent's a distant third. It's who you know and what you look like.
Oh, for sure it is.
Up front. It's what you look like, who you know, and acting, whether you can act or not, is kind of beside the point.
Interesting.
And one quick story, a movie called Mom and Dad Save the World.
Okay.
I went to the audition and didn't know what I was auditioning for, but I walked in and they handed me this part of a robot. Okay, so I'm sitting in the waiting room. Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, I know that.
And I'm sitting in the waiting room and I can hear people auditioning, their voice, and they're saying, what's wrong, doing a robotic kind of thing, and I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to do that. And so I get called in, my shot at it, and I go in, and the line was, what's wrong? So I said, what's wrong? The lady's jumping up and down. oh my God, the first person that hasn't done this like a robot, can you come back tomorrow? Sure, I can. Are you kidding? So come back the next day, and there's the producer sitting there. And she and the producer, the casting director and the producer, and the producer looks at him and he says, do you think you could handle a larger part? What do you think?
Yeah, really, you're not kidding.
I'm an actor, man. What do you want? So he says, do you think you can read the part of the preacher who's going to marry these people? And I don't even know what the story is at this point, but yeah, sure, fine. So they give me what they're called sides.
Yeah.
And so I go out in the hall and kind of learn the 5 lines of dialogue and come back in and they do the 5 lines. Oh my God, great. Can you come back tomorrow and meet the director? Are you kidding? Yeah, what time? 9 o'clock. Okay, great. So I come back the next day and walk in, and there's 3 chairs in a little half circle. The casting director's on one side, and the producer's on the other, and the director's in the middle. And I walk in, the director looks at the producer and says, you got to be kidding me.
Seriously? That's
Yes.
great for your ego.
You got to be kidding me. And the casting director says, well, let him read. So I read the part, and the guy went, yeah, right. I'm out the door, that's it.
Oh,
Never got
that's
cast.
brutal.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
So when the movie comes out, Joyce and I go to see it, and there were 2 identical twins playing the parts that I had auditioned for.
Oh, my word.
But that's the look
exactly
of
like you.
Yeah.
Did they really?
Look just like me.
Oh, my God.
And that's...
What would they just use?
So that's the luck of the draw in Hollywood.
Yeah, I know. I had someone tell me one time about auditioning. You can't take it personally because you don't have a clue what they're looking for.
No, they don't know what they're looking for either. No, I'm serious. They don't. They don't have any idea what they're looking for until it walks in. And then they hope that whoever looks the part has the ability to do a little acting. I mean, the business is rife with people who come out of other professions. Dave Bautista was a wrestler,
Right, good point.
Arnold,
Yeah, The Rock.
right. Yeah, The Rock,
Yeah.
these guys turned out to be good actors or certainly decent at what they're playing. You wouldn't want to say Arnold do Hamlet, but
Right.
but they do very well at the parts that they're cast in. But how many, there's the history of Hollywood is rife with people that looked great but can't act every once in a while, and there you see them for 5 or 6 pictures, and then they're gone.
Right,
You never
right.
see them again.
I remember the early days of Sean Penn. I couldn't stand him. I thought he was a terrible actor. But, over the years, he's morphed.
Yeah.
Christian Slater, I thought, was the same way in his young days. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? This kid, obviously it was looks because he was terrible.
Absolutely. There's no way to tell. They just got, Christian Slater had a little something going for him because his mother is a casting director. So
That's the same
you
with
get a little
Nicolas
help
Cage,
there
too,
on
right?
that
Nicolas
one.
Cage?
Well, yeah, but Nick's not a bad actor.
Yeah.
I can tell you a story about him, too.
Please do.
I had the opportunity to get hooked up when the second time we went out. We had to come back. Joyce's father had passed away. And the second time we went out, we were there for almost 4 years. And I got lucky again and hooked up with this woman who was a producer. And she liked me, and she produced all kinds of things, movies and TV shows and, reality shows and whatever. And we skipped over something.
We can come back.
I have to throw this in.
All right.
Because I also spent 10 years in television news as a cameraman. I worked for CNN for the first 3 years they were on the air, and I worked for Channel 6 up in Portland for 4 or 5 years. So I had my own equipment at that time, and Gloria, this lady I'm talking about, was producing a chocolate show, a cooking show based around chocolate. And so I got involved in helping her produce that, and a little time goes on, and she calls me up one day and she says, we have to go do an interview with Nicolas Cage. I said, great. Why? And she says, well, Sean Connery is going to be given a Life Achievement Award at the Lincoln Center. And he and Nick had done the movie called The Rock together. And Nick wants to do a television video thank you and acknowledgement, to Sean, but he can't because he can't do it in real life because he's making this picture. So we got to go do this interview with him. I said, okay, fine. Should take about an hour. Great. So we show up on a location where he's shooting, and they show us to his trailer, which is actually a sort of a Greyhound bus converted into, the inside of it is phenomenal.
Okay.
8 hours later, we're still sitting there because he hasn't had time. Every time he runs in to sit down and say something, and they come out and say, "Oh, Nick, they need you," and he runs out again.
Oh my God!
So 8 hours we sat in his trailer, and he finally comes in and does the interview and kept apologizing. "I'm sorry you guys had to wait. I'm sorry. It's fine. No problem.
Yeah,
we enjoyed some of
wait.
we enjoyed some of your booze. It's not a problem." But anyway, Hollywood is a interesting place, to say the least.
So would you say you were successful in Hollywood? Did you like the experience out there?
Well, I hate California passionately.
Oh, you do?
Weather's wonderful, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a police state, basically. I mean, let's put it this way. There's Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, and then there's the county of Los Angeles. And the county of Los Angeles must have 10 or 15 other small towns in it, Burbank and Studio City and Tarzana and Encino, blah, 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 blah. Each one of them has a police force. And you cross one street, you're going from one town to the other town, different rules, and then there's the county sheriffs, and it's you can't walk. You walk across the street, they'll give you a ticket. It's the old jaywalking thing. And some of it is really nitpicky. And I know people that wanted to start businesses out there, and you have to go through something like 80 different. Comply with something like 80 different rules and regulations before you can open your business. It depends on which one of these towns you're in, because each town has their separate rules, and then the county has their separate rules, and the state has their separate rules, and some of them are all the same rule, but you got to comply for each one. It's a pain in the ass. But to answer your question, whether I was successful from my point of view, I did what I wanted to do. I obviously never became a star or anything like that, but I produced 6 movies. I made 20 pictures. I met a lot of fascinating, interesting people. We had a good time. And if other circumstances had not intervened, I would probably still be there. And I do believe if I'd gone out there when I was in my 20s, I probably would have had a successful career as a character actor. But
that's fascinating.
I didn't.
Yeah.
But I've had the opportunity to work on almost every lot out there. I've made pictures on Paramount and Warner Brothers and Universal and Sony, and sometimes I made a lot of money and sometimes I didn't. I had the great luck to get cast in a Little Caesars National Pizza commercial, which made us a ton of money and was only on the air for like 6 weeks.
No kidding.
And I know people out there who did regional beer commercials, and it paid them $80,000.
Are you kidding me?
No, my 6-week commercial paid us about 20 grand. You get paid your day rate, $500, $600, whatever it was, I don't remember, and then all the residuals. And I remember the commercial had come out, and it was running on, I don't know, half a dozen cable and wherever it was, places. And it'd been out for about a week, 2 weeks, and I went out to the mailbox one day, and there's this manila envelope, and I brought the manila envelope in, and Joyce will tell you, opened it up, and checks just kept falling out of it.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that you can make a lot of money.
That's beautiful.
You can make a lot of money if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And I got lucky in that respect, but anyway.
I was down on the set of Daddy's Home 2, and some of the SAG people were there, and some of them decided they would talk to the non-SAG people.
Yeah.
So they were talking to us and asking us what we're doing. I said, I just done a commercial. And this one SAG gentleman who was really nice said that he had done a commercial for, like years ago, for an oil company. No, it was for MasterCard. And he said he was getting residuals like 40 grand a year.
Yeah.
Just in residuals. And he was lamenting the fact that a lot of that doesn't happen as much anymore. The residuals kind of, they can get a few more non-union people.
Well, what happened was, and I think that may have been just fixed just recently, is that the residual contract or the residual agreements only applied to broadcast. It didn't apply to cable. And so all of a sudden the commercials, the advertisers started putting the commercials more on cable because broadcast started declining and cable started picking up, which of course it did.
Sure.
It has.
Right.
And the SAG contracts were set for like this is for 5 years or this is for 8 years or whatever, and those contracts had to run out before they could renegotiate them.
That's interesting.
And now they've started to renegotiate, and you get paid equally or a goodly percentage more than you used to get because you didn't get anything if it was on cable. And now you do.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the percentages are.
That's fascinating. Do you, so we're just gonna, this is shotgun.
Go
obviously.
ahead.
I had also heard recently, and I don't know how invested you are still in the state of the industry, but I'd like to hear if you are. But anyway, I was down doing Castle Rock, and there were some SAG folks there who were talking about, they had just gotten, so there's non-union people trying to talk to the union people about whether or not they should be union.
Yeah.
And the union folks were saying, well, here's the interesting thing. We just renegotiated, so we got more money per
Right.
job. However,
Right.
the contracts now say that there's less union jobs. They're going to bring in more non-union people.
Right.
So we have less work, but we get paid more when we do it.
Right.
So is that true? Is it?
But a lot of the, again, going back to the cable thing, a lot of the, as you now probably see, Netflix and Christ, everybody,
Yeah,
you
Hulu,
know,
Prime, Apple,
they're
yeah.
all out there producing their own work. And in the case of the bigger ones like Netflix, a lot of their stuff is union, but not all of it is. And so that's actually correct. There's a lot more work to be had, but less union work to be had. I think that's absolutely true.
Do you think it's a good time to get in the? Is it still a good time? Is it always good to be in the union, or maybe you
Well,
should? Would you
see-
advise people to
see,
stay out as long as they can?
The rule one of the union is that you have to only do union work. Now, in my opinion,
I see.
there is no reason why anybody should turn down an opportunity to make some money, in my opinion. Now, I understand the reason for rule number one, because obviously they want the people to hire union contract, and if you're willing to do it for non-union, then what's the point? Of the union ultimately. But I don't. If someone is at a entry level, they happen to be SAG. Somehow they manage to get in, and somebody comes along. SAG doesn't know who the hell you are. They're just accepting your twice a year union dues.
Right.
But when you start to get up there and develop a name, well, then you probably should just stick with the union. Now, Christopher Mitchum, Robert Mitchum's son, of course he's probably older than I am now, but he stepped out of the union some years ago, kind of famously so, because he was offered a 3 or 4 picture deal in Italy and a 2 or 3 picture deal in Hong Kong that was non-union, but it was going to pay him a lot of money. And he said, why should I turn this down? I can't afford to turn this down. I got my family to feed, and I'm not getting anything here, but I got these people over here who are going to give me X number of bucks. So he did that and got a lot of criticism for it. But his point of view is, I got to support my family. I'm an actor. This is what I do.
Right.
So why should I turn it down? And then the union came up with this plan where you can petition to do just exactly that, to step out of the union. You still have to pay your union dues, but you're no longer required to follow the rules.
Interesting.
in other countries.
Oh,
In other countries.
I see the loophole there.
In other countries. Now, at the same time, there's Clint Eastwood, who famously went to Europe and did to Italy or Spain or wherever it was, and did the spaghetti westerns, the first three. And if you read his biographies, he got paid $10,000 or $15,000 to go do these. And I don't think they were union films at all, because he was the only American actor in the first one, and I don't know whether Lee Van Cleef showed up in the second or third one, but Lee Van Cleef had moved to Italy for this very same reason, that he wasn't getting any work here, but he was making tons of movies over in Italy. You know, so why?
Right.
Why should I let you prevent me from earning a living?
Yeah.
You know,
What a crazy world.
out of the country, who cares? I think. Today, I don't know if that's true. If you're someone of their stature, you know, if Eastwood, 10 years ago, of course he's in his 80s now, but 10 or 15 years ago, somebody came along and said, let's go make a movie, in South Africa. I don't know whether he would have to comply with that or not, but anyway.
I wonder if that has anything to do with a lot of like these television shows that are being made now in Canada. Is that?
Well, they're going to Canada now that it doesn't apply up there.
No?
They're going to Canada because theoretically it's cheaper to shoot in Canada. I don't happen to think that that's totally true, because Canada has a devalued dollar. Their money's worth less than ours is, and that's what they're looking at. But I think the Canadians just inflate the prices, so it still winds up being about the same. That's an opinion. I don't have any proof of that, but I wouldn't. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, right.
Why wouldn't they? But at the same time, there are a lot of studios have built sound stages up in Vancouver and in Toronto, and those places, and so they're going up there to make them. And a lot of the American actors that we think are American actors are really Canadian actors. People who were born in Canada came down here. William Shatner being the prime example, and there's quite a few others. John Vernon. I don't know if you know who John Vernon was.
Yep.
I had the great luck to have him cast in my first film that I produced. My first picture that I wrote and produced in L.A. Was a Western called Stage Ghost. It's not the original title. It was originally called Adobe Station, but I let the distributors talk me into changing it. I never should have done that.
I saw the trailer this morning.
Yeah, well, but I personally happen to think that even though it may not be a great movie, it had a great cast, because I had Bill Sanderson from the Newhart Show, my brother Daryl, and my other brother Daryl, and I had Terry Moore, who goes all the way back to the early studio days. I had John Vernon and Edward Albert. It was Eddie Albert's son, but Edward's done 90 films, and Christopher Atkins from the Blue Lagoon, and I had a pretty good cast in that picture, and Dana Barron from the young lady from the National Lampoon Vacation series, played the daughter in those, and I had a pretty damn good cast, and Stephen First directed it, from Stephen First of Animal House, played Flounder in Animal House. I did 3 pictures with Steve.
No kidding.
I did 4 pictures with Chris, and Chris Atkins, and nice people, nice guys, and even though, as I said, it may not have been a great movie, we had a good time making it.
Yeah. Did many of them end up on DVD or
they're all on DVD.
They are, huh?
Yeah, they're all on DVD, except for one film that I produced along with a man named Terry Wiseman back here down in Nashua, called Developing Sheldon. Terry wrote the script, and it won the 2nd or 3rd New Hampshire Film Expo Best Picture. And for reasons that I've never quite understood, Terry never made a distribution deal that I'm aware of.
Really?
For this picture. And I think it was a pretty good movie. It didn't have anybody in it that anybody's ever heard of. But it was a pretty good movie, I think. And I think it was probably one of the better ones that I've produced. and they're better ones I've even been involved with directly. And he just, I don't know why, he didn't make a deal.
So, looking at the mechanics of a lot of these things, did you enjoy producing? Is that, if you had your choice, would you
rather be an actor?
You would, yeah,
Well,
I get that.
you see, if you're going to make a movie, I don't care how big the picture is. One of the things, the little 20, 30-minute movies I've done with Freddie or, any other film, making a movie is like going to war. No, that's not a joke. It really is. It's like going to war. The only difference is you're probably not going to get killed making the movie. Because you have to have transportation, you have to have food, you have to have costumes, you have to have housing, you have to have all of the equipment necessary to make the picture, and you have to move all of this from location to location to location to location. And you have to feed 150 people every day. It's like going to war, really.
Good analogy.
And when I was on the film commission, I made the analogy that the movie business is the only business on the planet that uses everything else that we as human beings have created. Now think about that for a minute. It uses everything. There's nothing you can name that has not been replicated in a movie. From a nuclear bomb to a glass of water. It required, in order to make the picture, you have to have everything that we have made on this planet in one form or another, depending on what the film is, of course.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a film about Vikings, you got to build longships. If you're going to make a film about, last night, Joyce and I were watching a picture called Operation Crossbow, about the V1 and V2 rockets. Well, in order to make the movie, you got to build V1 and V2 rockets. They don't have to work, but you got to look like they do, and full-size ones. So it's the only business that uses everything else that we've ever made. You got to do a naval picture. You got to have Navy ships. You got to find all fighter planes. Everything.
Right. So, do you still have a love for film?
Yes.
As opposed, I'm juxtaposing that to the stage, kind of, more or less.
Well, let's put it this way: making movies as an actor is a damn sight easier than doing stage stuff, because you got to know the entire script, night after night after night after night. Whereas in making a movie, you only got to know 2 or 3 pages of dialogue, and even then, you probably have very short lines, 2 or 3 lines, because long dialogue scenes usually don't work on movies or in movies. Every once in a while, if you're going to do Shakespeare, you're going to have dialogue, but that's a different setup. Yeah. That's completely different. So as an actor, it's a hell of a lot easier to make movies, and it's a lot more fun, because on a stage, you're basically locked in right there. That's where you are. And in a movie, you can be anywhere. If you're going to do a Western, you're out riding around in stagecoaches and horses and, shooting guns, and it's you're playing cowboys and Indians, as you did when you were a kid.
Right.
So, from my point of view, making movies is a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I have essentially retired from the stage, is that I'm 70, and I can't guarantee that I can remember all the lines anymore.
I know the feeling. I really do. I really do.
No, but the interesting part of that is stuff that I did 20 years ago. I still remember some of that, but I don't know if I can remember new stuff today.
I have a friend that I did theater with in college, and honest to God, to this day, he can still recite lines from things that we had done, and he'll do my lines, and I'll say, "What was I in that play? I don't recall being in that play."
Oh.
He's like, "Oh no, no, we did it together, And I'm like, "Oh."
Oh, hey, I've, as I said earlier, I've done almost 200 shows, and there are times when I'm watching something and I say, "Oh, I did that show." I completely forgot about it. I did that show 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 or whatever it was.
So you had all these wonderful connections in the film industry. You knew all these people, and you were moving through the industry, and then you stopped.
Well, I stopped for very personal reasons, which I'll tell you. I'm not not secrets. I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, well, don't be, because I'm here.
I know. I was going to say, obviously you're here, so it must have worked out.
No, I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and I wound up having 14 operations. And then I was diagnosed right after that with kidney cancer, and I lost my left kidney and half of my bladder. So that put a stop to it, because it took me 4 years to recover from all of this. And in that 4 years, my mother died, and I had to take care of my father, and her mother and father passed away. My wife's mother and father passed away. So we had to come back here to take care of her mother and my father, and at the same time I was going through all of the cancer treatments. And once you've lost the momentum, it was like, I'm not going to go back and start all over again.
Yeah, I imagine it takes a lot of energy to
Well, it does.
try to restart that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back and start all over again.
Yeah.
And now I'm definitely not, because I just think I'm too old, and I basically lost my interest.
Is he too old, Joyce?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Right. Thank you.
Put things on hold for us.
There you go.
He's never lost the spark, and we're still talking projects now, so.
Well, the only other problem with that is we can talk projects now until hell freezes over, but you got to come up with the money to make
Oh,
them.
I see. There's always that block. Always.
When we came back, he shifted back to doing theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theater, so.
Joyce and I were associated with the Amesbury Playhouse down in Amesbury, Mass. In fact, that's where I met her. And so essentially, with the breaks to California that I've talked about, I was there for 25 years. And I was averaging probably 4 to 5 shows a year down there. And that sort of took up the slack of not doing stuff out in LA when we came back. Mm-hmm. And I was able to go back to doing that.
Was that as a paid professional, or was that just community theater kind of? Do I need to edit right here?
No. My take on this was, Joyce will disagree with me on this, and maybe some other people will as well, but there was a core group of actors at the Amesbury Playhouse that, the way I described them we were professional in our approach and amateur in our standing. Because I will put some of those people up as actors against any actors I know anywhere on the planet. Mark Nichols is a superb actor. Jim Menclark is a superb actor. You know, these people, they know what they're doing, and I've done shows with both of them, and they can stand in any stage in the world with any actor you can name and hold their own.
Yep.
They're fine actors, and it just worked out that way. It was also a training ground for Amesbury, for a lot of people who were coming into it. We've had people that go on to Broadway. What's her name? Andrea McCormick?
Yep.
Something, yeah. Andrea McCormick went on and did Broadway. We had a couple of other people that went out to Hollywood. I mean, you know, so it's a training ground for them. And for those of us who stayed, it was a lot of fun. And it certainly kept your hand in, you know, to do shows on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it was something to do. I wouldn't pass it up. We were all very universally upset when the Playhouse closed and the building was sold and that we were in, and the rent went up, and it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So
I know every time I hear of a theater closing, it breaks my heart.
yeah, but they were there for 40 years. Joyce was painting scenery when she was 12 or 14 or something, you know, there. And it was a great place to do it and to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Have they replaced it with anything down there now?
No.
It's a shame.
Not that I'm aware of.
That's
no.
a shame.
And if they had, I think we'd know about it. No, there's still a core group of us actors who get together and we play trivia once a week down in Michael's Harborside for money. We play trivia for money.
So pro gamblers, I get it.
Yes,
I get
yes.
it.
We're pro-trivia people.
So, I know you were on the New Hampshire Film Bureau.
I was, I don't remember who it was that asked me to join the Film Commission. I just don't remember that. That was about 15 years ago. But I was appointed, I guess, after my name was put forth by Jeannie Shaheen when she was governor, and then reappointed by Brennan, was not Brennan, the other guy, the rich guy from, the one that,
Craig Benson.
Benson. I was reappointed by Benson and then again by Lynch. So I was on the commission for 4 years and 2 years as its chairman. That was interesting. We used to meet, we started out in travel and tourism, and then for reasons of, I'm sure, of political nature, it was moved to cultural affairs with Van McLeod, and then they changed the name from cultural affairs to cultural resources, so we couldn't have affairs anymore. So,
Okay.
Is when I was over, when we moved over to Van's shop that I wound up as the chairman for 2 years. And while I was chairman, we had the Brothers of Poland, Maine. Is that right? Poland, New Hampshire.
Randy Quaid.
Yeah, Randy Quaid. It was a TV series that they shot up in Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I was there, we had that, and then we also had, what was the name of that damn movie? Sensation of Sight, yes, with David Strathairn and...
There's New Hampshire writers, yeah.
Huh?
There's New Hampshire.
Yeah, a couple of New Hampshire writers had written the script, and they came up with the money to make this movie over in... Where was it made? Plymouth. No. It begins, well, anyway, I'll come up with it in a minute. It's that memory part that I can't remember. But it had David Strathairn and it had Ian Somerhalder, and who's a young man who's on his way up, and some other people, and when I was the chairman. And so we did have a few projects that were going on, but getting movies to shoot in New Hampshire is a problem because we don't offer the incentives that other states do, like Massachusetts does.
Or Georgia.
Or any of those other states. Right. I mean, I think in New Mexico we'll give you $100,000 in cash, plus all of the tax breaks and everything else. We don't give them anything. There were a couple of apocryphal stories. I don't know if it's completely true or not about long before I was involved. That Steven Spielberg called up and he needed a old resort hotel like the Wentworth of the Mount Washington for something he was going to make, and they sent him a couple of brochures. That was it. And he called a few other places that had the same kind of hotels, and one out in Michigan, and they flew him out first class, gave him a limo, put him up, took him around, showed him the places, and that's where he wound up making the movie. I think it was. Go figure. I think it was Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeves. I think that was the name of the movie. But it needed to have an old hotel like the Wentworth, one of those old resort hotel types. And we just don't do anything like that. And I can sort of understand it because we're not a rich state. We don't have that much money, But on the other side of that coin, the amount of money that a film company, an A-list film company, is going to bring in is going to more than make up for what you offer them in incentives. I mean, it's not at all unusual to hear that some movie company comes into town and they're there for a month and they drop $2 million.
Yeah.
In hotel and food and rental cars and the whole bit,
I agree with you. And when I was down, I had this discussion with someone not long ago. When I was down in Lawrence, Mass, and I was just playing an extra in Daddy's Home 2. Mm-hmm. You've got Mel Gibson, you've got Mark Wahlberg, you've got John Lithgow, right? So they bring in all these A-listers. It's being filmed at the Showcase Cinema down there, and 300 extras
Showcase Cinema. Where's
in
it?
Lawrence, Mass.
I did a film at the Showcase Cinema.
Did you really?
It's my first. You go ahead and tell your story.
All right, we'll jump back in on that one. So it's basically turned into a movie lot, where all the trailers for all these people and the 300 extras who would come in a day
Yeah.
and having to spend their money somewhere
Yeah.
in Massachusetts, right?
Right.
So, of course, all the electricity's coming from Massachusetts, all the food's coming from Massachusetts, it's being catered. And I had this argument, so I said, well, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the value of bringing a company like that into New Hampshire for some reason? Are you out of your mind?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's just
correct.
one. That was one I was on.
Yeah.
Castle Rock's down there right now filming
Uh-huh.
all day long
Yeah.
for months.
Yeah. Exactly.
Adam Sandler's down there. He's from New Hampshire. He's
Yeah,
filming
well.
down there right now. Well, oh, I saw that look. We might have to get into that. But it's the same thing. All this money's just going down there, right?
Yes. Yes.
And staying there.
Absolutely.
If I want to work as a New Hampshire resident, I'm going down there. I'm going to spend my gas down there. I'm going to put my tolls down there. I'm going to buy my food down there.
And you're going to pay your taxes.
Exactly
down there,
right.
Too.
Exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And you know, we on the film commission, we didn't have anything to say about it, of course, but we would keep making these recommendations, and the word that always came back was, well, we can't afford it. And on the commission were, I think there were 10 people. Don't quote me on that. Some of them were state reps, some of them were senators, and Senator Johnson, we got more than one Senator Johnson, and I'm afraid I
It's okay.
can't remember which one's which. But he used to sit next to me, and he would agree with all of this. But he would agree with it. But then he would say, "We're never going to get it through the legislature. They won't come up with the money." And I mean, the obvious reality of this is that we should be doing it, but we're not. So there's nothing we can do
I
about it.
find it ironic that we have so many film festivals in our
Oh.
state, and here we are not bringing in any films.
Well, yeah, I can tell you a summary about that. too.
Please do.
The
Enlighten me.
New Hampshire Film Expo, which is about to start, I think, here next month in Portsmouth or later this month, started out down in Londonderry. And 3 young guys put it together. And I don't remember whether they called us or we found out about it or something, but the very first festival, the very first night, My Film Stagecoach opened it. The very first night. Now, this was right after 9/11. Immediately thereafter 9/11. And so,
You mean like that month after, not like a year later?
no, I mean like the week later or a few days later.
Oh my God.
And so we had the picture is going to open the festival, and there's also going to be a candlelight visual outside. So there's 10 people watching the movie and 100 people outside of the candlelight festival. So nobody saw the picture. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. I understood that completely. But then they were down there for 3 years. I think 3 years, and that's where we, Terry and I won the best picture for developing Sheldon, and then they moved it to Portsmouth. And the 3 young men that started it, Dan Hanna is the only one that I can remember at the moment. Dan Hanna went on to work, I think, for Adam Sandler's outfit in L.A. And Happy Madison, yeah,
cool.
yeah. And then Nicole Gregg, who is the daughter-in-law of Judd Gregg, became involved in putting it together in Portsmouth. I don't know if she's still involved with that or not, but I would say that a large percentage of the success of that goes to her credit, because she sort of made it. She broadened it. She knew more about the advertising of it and brought in more films, and it's now become a relatively important film festival.
It's fascinating, Bob.
Yeah. And I was again on the commission at one point down there, and I had the great privilege of sitting in on a couple of the panels and for judging panels, and as well as a couple of the teaching panels on making relatively low budget movies. You don't need millions of dollars to make a movie. I mean, you may need $100 grand. But that's a lot easier to come up with than I think than,
Sure.
100 million.
Sure, right.
And so I sat in on the panels a few times on how to make low-budget movies. And it was a really great privilege, and I was happy to do it, and still would be happy to do it. And but I think that a lot of the success of the expo now goes to Nicole.
From those early years.
Yes. I don't know who runs it now. I haven't been to one in years.
Yeah. I think I'm about to have somebody in from there next month or
Good.
later this month.
Good, you should.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would love to find out more. But again, that's all for the smaller independent filmmakers for the most part, right? I mean...
Well, no, yes and no. But I mean, to define smaller and independent, I mean, today by Hollywood standards, anything under what, $6 or $8 million is low budget. But but you can make a pretty good movie for $5, $6, $7 million.
Right.
You don't need $100 million to make a movie. Besides, a lot of that goes to your stars. A lot of that money, you're paying Mel Gibson $20 million to make the picture, and then you throw in 2 or 3 other big names. Half the damn budget goes out the door just to take care of them.
Yeah, I had a friend, Scott Millette. I don't know if you know him. He's out in Portsmouth, or was. And we did a short little trailer kind of ish thing, but he ended up using the Halloween parade out in Portsmouth as background. Talk about free. We sat back and watched it later. I mean, you couldn't pay to have all those extras on set.
Absolutely true.
I mean, the cops, fire trucks, all there. And we were just weaving in and out of the crowd filming. It was a brilliant idea.
Well, like I said, I spent 10 years in television news, and I've shot more parades you can shake a stick at. But, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I happen to know one filmmaker who shall remain nameless for the time being, who has done exactly that. He's gone out and shot a lot of news stuff legitimately and edited whatever it was, and because a news story is 90 seconds, and you go out and shoot 5 or 10 minutes to get the 90 seconds, and he saves that and has used the extra footage and the other projects that he's got going.
That's brilliant.
So he doesn't have to go out and reshoot it, not to pay anybody.
Sure. That's quite an archive.
Fires, things like that. We had a fire years ago. I worked at Channel 6 from 1983 to 88 or 89, something like that. And we had a fire in one of the mills up there. And it looked like those footages you see from the Blitz in World War II or the bombings of Germany, and the huge goddamn building collapsing. And why not?
Great footage.
Great footage. Stick it into your World War II movie.
Sure, absolutely. Man, oh man. So where do you see the state of film happening now?
I think the state of film is so much now dependent on digital, is where it's headed. Very few companies shoot on film anymore, although it is my understanding that the latest Tarantino picture, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is shot completely on film and distributed on film. But the whole
They distributed
business,
on film as well?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
interesting. Can you imagine being a theater that went digital?
I think so. I'm not positive about that. But the whole business has changed, and shooting on film is kind of pointless from my point of view, because you have to go develop the film. You don't have to develop digital.
Right.
You got it, just like that, So that's an extra cost that you're saving. And it's easier to edit. You can edit on this thing. You can edit on a computer right here. Mm-hmm. You don't need a flatbed editing or a Moviola to edit on anymore. And you don't have film hanging in strips, for 40 feet. It is so much easier. Everything every film I made, we did digitally. And there's a process called film look that will change. Video can be kind of flat, and film look will give it a little more depth to it. Most people can't tell the damn difference anyway, And we've got generations now, 2 generations of people have been looking at video, so they don't care one way or the other. It's kind of, is it in color? Is it in focus? Can I hear what they're saying? Right. That's the important part. But there are still filmmakers who think that film is the only way to go. I think it's a dying art, shall we say. And I think the entire industry it already has dramatically changed, and pretty much everything's gone to digital. And the same for distribution. But to get more in depth to your question, I think that the fate of the movie theaters, another couple of generations, I'm not so sure they'll still be there, because we go to the movies on a weekend, and we go because we're seniors and we take advantage of the matinee. But we don't see very many younger people in the theaters.
Right.
It's the older people that are going to the movies. And now that television, for lack of a better word, cable, has started streaming so much. I mean, if you can't find something to look at on Netflix or Prime,
Right.
you don't really want to watch a movie.
Right. It's true. Yeah.
And DVD, you don't have to go to the movies anymore.
Right. When you get television screens that are the size of movie screens.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
so
Yes.
and sound systems in homes that
Right, yeah.
rival anything.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised if in another couple of generations the concept of going to the movies won't exist anymore. Going out.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
I know,
think,
right.
Because I like going to the movies and sitting in the back of the theater with a bag of popcorn,
It's like the old days of going to the drive-in, right?
Yeah, well, that's long gone.
Right.
too,
The only one left I
pretty
know is
much.
the Wares, pretty much.
Yeah, there's one or two left in the country, and that's
Right.
it. Of course, sometimes we went to the drive-in for other reasons.
Oh, really? Huh. For other reasons?
But I don't think that the movie theaters are going to last, and I think that that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the technology, like everything else, advances, it changes, and nothing ever stays the same, and unfortunately, and that's just the way it's going to
It's
go.
funny you say it, because the theaters are having the same problem, getting people in,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
which is an interesting...
You mean live theaters?
live
or-
theater,
oh,
stage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was recently talking to two theater owners or artistic directors for them, and they have both said the same thing, that people aren't coming out as much as they used
Yeah.
to, and,
Yeah.
and a lot of the people are our age, they're all in their 60s.
Yeah.
Nobody young is hardly coming out to them anymore,
Down in Amesbury, we used to have busloads of seniors on. That was the deal. It's a senior night out. There'd be 60, 100 people would come in. This is a dinner theater, I might add.
Yep.
They'd come in, they'd have dinner and see a show, and they were all 60 years old, 55, 60 years old plus, and great audiences. They loved the shows, but we seldom had younger people. In spite of the fact that I said that the building was sold and the rent couldn't be maintained, I kind of think we probably would have closed anyway for this very same reason that we're talking about, because we had less and less numbers in the audience. 25 years ago, opening night, we'd have 200-300 people, and then as years progressed, it was less and less and less. And with the exception, if you were doing a holiday-themed show like Dracula. I did Dracula 13 years in a row. We always had hundreds of people, show up, and especially on Halloween, they'd come in a costume, and it was an event,
Right.
And then Christmas time, well, I don't know how many times we did A Christmas Carol, and same thing, huh?
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right, I know.
It's a guaranteed house.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. So those kinds, and if you do musicals, pretty much
Sell out.
you sell out for the musicals, and so every once in a while there would be a comedy that would have, for lack of a better word, a theme to it that would draw people. Bless Me Father. It's a Catholic-themed comedy, two priests on stage kind of a thing. And in a town of French Irish Catholics, they're going to come see it.
Mhm.
You know, like Manchester or Amesbury or whatever those, you know, all of those towns around here that's where they were built on. But pretty much, I agree with you. I don't think that. I hate to see.
Cost prohibitive to go to theater too.
Oh, it's crazy. The cost
Even-
for a
Yes.
ticket nowadays is
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
Even for a lower end,
Yeah,
you know, community. theater,
Absolutely.
they're getting $25-$30.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
I mean, I can't, I would love to go more often with my wife. But you're talking $70, $80 before
Yeah.
any dinner?
Right.
I mean, my God.
Absolutely true.
I mean, I haven't gone to a show, I've never gone to a show in New York, but I can't imagine paying the prices that you would pay down there and trying to make a night out of it.
Well, I've only seen one show in New York, and that was many years ago. Do you remember the actor Gary Merrill? Was Betty Davis's last husband?
I'm saying no. but-
Gary had he had a 40-year career, and he was a friend of mine, and he said that he had the bad luck to make his two classic films up front in the beginning and not toward the end. You must have seen 12 O'Clock High
Yes,
and All About Eve.
yes.
Well, in All About Eve, he's the guy that plays Betty Davis's boyfriend / husband. In 12 O'Clock High, he's the colonel that Gregory Peck replaces. So, as I said, he had the bad luck. Anyway, point is, he was, as I said, he was a friend of mine. He lived in Falmouth, Forsyth, Maine, and he was on Broadway in a play called Mornings at 7. And he said, "Why don't you come see it? Bring your wife," my first wife. And we did. And the tickets, this is 35 years ago, 40 years ago. And the tickets back then were like $50 to go to the show. But of course, we got in for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, but we still had to cough up for the hotel room in New York, which wasn't cheap.
No, it's an event to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's the only Broadway show I've ever seen.
I have friends who go all the time. Oh, like, I don't know how they do it, but they go all the time. I mean, and I've said to them, one of the reasons I don't go is just the thought of going to New York City intimidates me.
Oh, I don't. Yes, yes.
I have no
question
clue how
about
I
that.
get there. I don't know what I would do when I did get there. I don't know. Do I take a bus, a trolley? Do I drive? Do I park? I don't know. I just stay home now.
We went down a few years ago to audition for, what was that show, Joyce?
No, Millionaire.
Yeah, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
What?
Yeah, we went down and auditioned for why not? What the hell, you know? We took the train down to, I guess, Grand Central Station, and then took a cab to the studio. I don't remember what studio it was, ABC.
ABC.
Huh?
I think it was ABC.
ABC, I think, yeah. Took a cab to ABC, and we went in and auditioned for the show. But in order to audition for the show, you have to play the game. And we didn't make it. But it was fun.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I can imagine it would have been.
When I was in LA, I auditioned for Jeopardy, and wow, there were 70 of us that auditioned for Jeopardy, and only 3 people were picked because you have to take the test, and you have to play a game, answer the questions, and you can't miss a single one. And if you do, you're out.
Wow.
You only have 10 seconds to respond.
Yeah, you had
Is that
yeah,
right?
you had 10 seconds to respond. Yeah, 10 seconds.
Well, that'll
to
call the
respond.
herd real fast.
Yeah, it did. Me included. Out the door.
Did you ever get a chance to audition for any big name movies that you're like, God dang, I was so close?
Yeah. Wait a minute. We were just talking about this on the way down. The one that Sandra Bullock did back here.
Oh, the proposal?
Proposal. Yeah. I had an audition for that. And I got called back twice, but didn't get the part. And it was a somewhat. It wasn't a huge part, but it was a good part of one of the businessmen that she was dealing with in the context of the story. And it had 2 or 3 scenes, and I would have loved to have done that.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
I know.
Why not?
Boston Casting, yeah.
Yeah, through Boston
I
Casting.
love Boston Casting.
Yeah, most of everything I've ever gotten has come out of them. And I mentioned to you I did a movie at the Showcase Cinema.
Yes.
The first thing I ever did through Boston Casting, and it was a industrial about, and it just didn't make any sense to me. It still doesn't. But it was a 20-minute industrial movie about how movie theaters handle independent filmmakers' movies.
Really?
And it was a walkthrough. I played the filmmaker, and there was this other guy who was the theater manager or whatever. Well, when we take your movie and we go here and we put it on the machine, and this is how we do this, and this is where we put it when we're done with it, and then this is what we do when we ship it back to you, and it was all of this whole thing, and it was about a 20-minute industrial educational film for young independent filmmakers, and I'm going, what's the point of this?
Because they needed to know, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Wow.
It got through your SAG card.
It got me my SAG
Oh, it
card.
did?
Yeah, it got me my SAG card, so that was fine with me.
All right, well, that's good.
And then I followed that with another commercial for the Shawmut Bank, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right, my uncle used to work for the Shawmut.
Yeah, so those two were what got me my SAG card.
Right.
So.
Wow, that's good, isn't it? So how about TV? Have you done any TV? And I know you said you were a cameraman for CNN.
Yeah.
That's had to be fascinating.
I was a cameraman for CNN for 3 years. I would work, a guy named Harvey Sanders and I. Harvey owned a company in Dover called CIE, Commercial Industrial Educational, CIE Films. And he had had a long career in working for what used to be called the ITNA, the Independent Television News Service. And so when CNN went on the air, he gets this call because the guy that used to work for ITNA was now one of the assignment editors for CNN. And we went to work for them 2 weeks after they started. And the first thing we did was the America's Cup down in Newport.
Sweet. What a gig that must have been.
Flying around in a helicopter watching a boat race, it's like watching grass grow.
Don't tell them that.
There's nothing, you can't tell that the boat's moving, And I worked for them for 3 years, and we went everywhere. That was probably the best job I ever had in my life, because it's the news business, because it's completely, you never know what you're going to be doing, from one day to the next.
Where were you based out of?
Here.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Because they were from Atlanta, right?
Yep. But they hired us to cover the Northeast, and then they sent us in 1980 across the country covering Senate races in Idaho and Illinois and South Dakota and Washington and Colorado, blah, blah, blah. And we were out there covering Senate races and talking to George McGovern, and there's a story about that. In South Dakota, they have Sioux City, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, whichever, can't remember. They have what's called a Hobo Day Parade, in which every politician who's going to run has to be in it. It's got to be in it.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's got to be in it.
I'll never run for governor.
And so everybody dresses up as a hobo, you see. So McGovern's there, and he's running for the Senate at that point. His re-election. This is long after he'd run for president. And we want to talk to him in particular, and the battery dies on the camera. And to apologize. And he says, well, why don't you guys come over to the house tomorrow morning? 9 o'clock. Oh, great. Yeah, here, gives us the address. Love to. No problem, Senator. So, next day, we walk up, knock on the door. He opens the door, and he's got a shotgun in his hand. He's so sorry, guys. You just came out from duck hunting. Puts it over there. He puts it away, and we go in, and we do the interview with him. And the interview is over, and he says, so, milk and cookies?
Seriously?
Yes.
Milk and cookies?
Milk and cookies. So, over here on the left is a closet door. And this is not an exaggeration. About 3 feet from the door out, from the top to the bottom, is nothing but keys. 500,000 keys. I don't know what the actual figure is. I'm making that up, of course. And when he finally says, Senator, do you collect? He says, oh, when I ran for president, that's every hotel room I stayed in.
Is that right?
Yes.
Thousands of keys?
Thousands of keys. Every hotel room he stayed in when he ran for president.
Oh,
and it was like, wow, that's impressive.
That is
you know?
impressive. I wonder if anyone else has ever done that.
I don't know.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
So did you like your gig at CNN? I mean, what kind of made you stop that? You said you worked there 3 years?
We never actually were in CNN.
Oh.
Everything we did.
You're like a freelancer?
Yeah, well, if you want to call it that, but we worked for them regularly, though. I mean, every week.
So they were more of a client of yours?
We were going somewhere, doing something. Harvey went out and bought a plane. He bought a Cessna 172, and we flew all over the East Coast for CNN. They sent us down to Washington, which doesn't make any sense to me, but they sent us down to Washington to interview people at Johns Hopkins, the Minister of Health from India. You know, when you don't have any cameramen in the Washington area, they sent us out to Long Island to talk to this doctor, this other woman about Ebola, you know, early on. And I don't know what the hell that was, you know. And we interviewed guys who had just won the Nobel Prize, the two guys that had just won the Nobel Prize for medicine for creating what we now call an MRI, but it was originally called an NMRI, a nuclear magnetic resonator.
Wow.
And people got nervous over nuclear, so they just
Oh, no
changed
kidding.
it. Yeah,
welcome to marketing.
Yeah. We went up to the top of Maine to cover the International Sardine Packing Championship.
Oh, there you go.
You know?
Something I can say I have not been to.
Yes, you know, I mean, we went, where they flew us, we went everywhere. And as I said, right across the country, although not in that plane, we took commercial for that, but...
So this was, when did that, 70s? When did Ted Turner start?
1980. Well, I worked for them from 80 to 83, and then I was also, at the same time, freelancing for Channel 6 up in Portland. And they had a guy...
as a camera photographer?
Yeah, as a cameraman. And I'm still doing theater on the side, by the way. And they had a guy that got hurt, broke his leg or something. He was going to be out for a while. And Tom Anthony was the assignment editor up there, and he called me up and he said, would you care to come up here and work for us full-time for about 6 months? And I said, he says, well, so-and-so gets, you know, is back on his feet. And I said, and he says, you know, quoted me a figure, which I no longer remember, but it was pretty good money for that year and day and time. And I said, sure, absolutely. And Harvey was about to move on. He didn't want to do CNN anymore. So this worked out perfectly. So I went to work up there for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, the guy comes back, and I figure I'm going to be out. And nobody said a word. And so another month or two goes by, and I go to Tom, and I said, you know, and he says, oh, no, you're permanent now. Didn't you know that? Oh, really? Thank you. Great. So I was there for 5 years doing that. And again, it's the best job I ever had.
So you liked, did you like television, or did you just like the camera part of it?
Oh, the camera part of it.
Yeah.
Now that's where I learned how to make movies, though, you see.
Pray tell.
Because in terms of the technical aspect of putting together a 90-second news piece is no different than making a 90-minute movie. You know, the way you shoot it, the way you edit it, it's still the same.
So you're just doing story on a smaller scale.
Yeah, the subject matter is different, but the technical aspects of making the movie are exactly the same, and there is no difference. You still got to have it lit and in focus, and you got to understand the language of film. WMCW, wide, medium, close, wide. That's how you shoot a scene. Wide shot, close shot, medium shot, wide shot. And that's, if you look at movies, that's the way they're done. They're not all, I mean, a car chase or something like that, you know, obviously not. But it's a wide shot to establish what's going on, and then a close-up of the person who's talking, and then a medium shot for a two-shot if two people are talking, and then back to the wide shot again, or move on to the next scene, which starts with another wide shot. So it's wide, medium, close, wide. That's the language of film. And as I say, not for every single shot, but that's pretty much the way it is. Now, when I first got into this, somebody said, I have some World War II German training films. Turn the sound off and watch how they make the movie. And so that's what I did. Wide, medium, close, wide, wide, medium, close, wide.
No kidding.
And then I started looking, well, there's a famous story about Orson Welles. Before he made Citizen Kane, he watched John Ford's Stagecoach about 40 times with the sound off, looking at how he put the movie together. It's the same thing.
That's brilliant.
Wide, medium, close, wide.
No kidding.
And then Orson Welles went and made Citizen Kane. And Orson Welles was asked on more than one occasion, who are the best three directors? John Ford, and John Ford. Was his answer. And
wow. So, God, there's so many things I want to ask you, but I know I can't keep you here all day.
Oh, why not? We have anything else to do. We've been here an hour.
So, if you had the chance, would you do that again? Would you be a cameraman again, or are you like, okay, I did it, been there, I flushed it out?
Well, as far as being in the news business, the answer is no, for one reason only. I'm too damn old. Now, that's true in this particular case, because it can be pretty demanding physically. Now, granted, the size of the equipment's different, but when I started, we had a 40-pound recorder we were shooting 3/4-inch tape. So we had a 40-pound recorder on this shoulder and a 25-pound camera over here. And you're out climbing around, fires and plane crashes and going through the woods looking for lost kids, and I can't do that anymore. I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But if it was to make a movie where I don't have to lug all that shit around, sure.
Yeah, the technology's changed so much.
Yes, and now the cameras are so much smaller,
Right.
of course. I mean, I saw the gentleman when we came in that had walked out of the room down there, and he had that nice little camera. I
Yeah.
assume that thing probably shoots as well, if not better, than the ones that we had 30 years ago, 40
Yeah.
years ago.
I saw a friend of mine has, and I know nothing about photography.
Yeah.
So all I know is he had 3 orb size that would sit on tripods, all running off Bluetooth to his telephone.
Right.
And he could see, never moving, he could see all 3 shots on his phone.
Yeah. Well, that thing right there probably takes pictures as good, if not better, than the ones that we had. Back
Crazy
then.
when you think about
Wow.
it. Right?
We didn't know what pixels were.
Right.
And the cameras that I were using were tube cameras. You had 3 tubes in the camera, and the camera was about that big. And 3 tubes in the camera, red, blue, green, to create color. Well, they don't do that anymore.
Right.
So the whole thing has changed completely.
Yeah.
Tell them the story of our screening at Paramount. They had to go out.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, that was somewhat of a disaster. We made Stagecoach. And we were going to have an industry-invited audience with the intention of maybe selling it, And so, it's a digital film, right? So Paramount had to go out and buy a digital projector. They didn't have one. And
We were the first one.
we were the
No
first one.
kidding.
Yeah. So the reason I say it was a disaster is because the guy running the digital projector didn't quite know how to do it. And so he didn't close down
The aspect
the
ratio
framing,
was
right? The
off.
aspect, the ratio was off. And so now there's the microphone, there's a ladder.
Oh, no
there's-
kidding. Oh, no kidding.
Oh, Christ, And we had
Oh, that's terrible.
and we had a
That's
guy.
terrible.
We had a guy from Japan who was there to buy movies, and it was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, well,
Oh my God, that's heartbreaking.
Yes, it was. And we had 2 showings, and Gloria, the lady I mentioned earlier, who would produce the picture for me, she kept railing on the guy, fix it. I don't know how. Where's the manual? I don't know. We got to read the manual.
Where's the manual?
You know.
we were right on that cusp of film versus
Yeah.
digital.
Just on that
Everything was changing.
switch over.
Oh, my God.
This was 2000, Joyce? 2000?
Yeah,
2000. Yeah.
Wow.
It's changed so much. In
I took that and another film that we made to Cannes, to the Cannes Film Festival, and we sold it with not a vast number of countries, but we sold some countries and we made some money on it, but nothing like what we should have been able to do so.
He drops the name Khan just like that. Yeah, we went out. So now I have to ask you about that. So when was that?
That would have been 2001. Yeah, it was.
Yeah?
The spring of 2001.
Is
April,
it
May.
crazy like it looks like it would be?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And there's my French is awful.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's called. It sounds like croissant, but that's not right. It's a croissette. I think there's something like that. Is the area that encompasses the film area, and there is a huge building that's been built there. That's the Palais de Palace of film, and that's where the actual. There are 2 aspects of the Cannes Film Festival. One is the film festival, and the other is the film market. I did not have my films in the festival. I had them in the market, but they're both in the same place at the same time. Okay, and that famous red carpet that goes up the front steps of the palace is everybody lines up to see who's who and all of that. But the more interesting aspects of it is what happens at the end of the day. Now, Cannes goes on for about 2 weeks, and at the end of the day, you ever heard of Grey Goose Martini?
Yes.
Okay. Or vodka, I mean.
Yep.
Every day, at the end of the day, there's all of these vendors that are lined up in tents out on this croissant thing. And at the end of the day, from 5 to 7, if you were participating in the market or the film festival, you got 2 free martinis of Grey Goose. So there would be bigger lines to go there
man.
in order to get into the festival.
Well, we know where the priorities lie.
Yeah. So Gloria and I used to just line up to go and get our free martinis. But we stayed at a place called Juan Le Pen's, or Jean Le Pen's, which is 15 minutes out of Cannes, and we take the railroad in every day, every morning, and it was like 50 cents or something, whatever comparable French money. And we'd come in and then go home at night. And there's 2 other stories I got to tell you. There's west of the palace. There's this street it's a hill, goes way the hell and gone up. Restaurants on both sides of the street, nothing else but restaurants. And all of the seating is outside, so the actual street's about that wide, okay, with restaurants over, the people are seating off on both other sides. Best food I've ever had in the world was there, and every night we'd start at the bottom of the hill, and the next night another one, and by the time at the end of the 2 weeks, we made it to the top of the hill. So it was excellent food. But the other story I got to tell you is the first movie I made out in L.A. was a bad version of The Man in the Iron Mask. Okay, really bad. But we produced it at Paramount. Gloria and I produced it at Paramount. And who makes a Three Musketeers movie with no sword fights? This is ridiculous. But anyway, set that aside for the moment. We're at Cannes. And Gloria runs up to me and she says, "We got to go out to this island that's out in the harbor." I said, "Why?" And she says, "Well, come on." We go outside and she says, "You can see the island." She says, "You see that fort out there?" I said, "Yeah." And she says, "That's where the real Man in the Iron Mask was held, so we got to go." Oh, okay, great. So there's a ferry that goes out. So we go out there and we go up to the fort. Now, every movie that you've ever seen with the man in the iron mask, he's in this little tiny cell, with straw on the floor. Well, the place he was really in is half the size of this friggin' building.
What?
It's a huge room. One room, but a huge room with a raised platform with a four-poster bed and a fireplace.
No kidding.
You might call it a cell, but you could live in it with no problems.
Oh my God.
Windows that looked out
would make a
over
good movie then.
No, not that. Windows that looked out over the Mississippi, over the Mediterranean, and it was like, well, if I got to be in jail, this isn't bad.
Jeez, who'd have thought that?
Yeah, I was really surprised.
Oh my God.
It was quite something.
Oh my God. So, stage, some television, is camera work, film work. A couple of questions. One, why aren't you like a consultant at this point for people? You have a vast knowledge.
Nobody's ever asked me.
Really?
That's not totally true. I've advised Freddie when he's asked me on some of the. As I said, Freddie's made about 10 or 11 short movies, and on 2 or 3 of them, I was the armorer for one of them for him. But if he needs something weird, he calls me. Okay. I mean, for Bighorn and for a movie called Stag Hunt, and as I said, for the Norman Rockwell Code. But no, nobody's ever asked me.
Interesting.
I occasionally offer advice to somebody online. Some of these young filmmaker, young actor, I want to be an actor, I want to be thing, and I'll throw my 2 cents worth in. And a couple of guys have come back, and I guess for lack of a better word, we'll call them Facebook friends. I've never met either one of them, wouldn't know if I fell over them, but they've asked me some intelligent questions and wanting to get into the business, and I've given them the benefit of my experience, if you want to call it that, and I've offered them advice, and whether they choose to follow it or not is up to them.
So that was my next question was, what type of advice, if you wouldn't mind, would you give to somebody who's just starting out and thinking about, should I go to LA? Should I go to New York? Should I stay in Boston? Do I go to Georgia, Canada? Do I need an agent? What would you say in this day and age would be some good starting out advice?
Well, if you're talking about being an actor or a filmmaker, if you're talking about being an actor, I'd say start now, find a stage that's going to let you get on. I'm sure there are community theaters. They're always looking for men. They got plenty of females, but they're always looking for males. And get as much stage time as you can, because even though there's a difference between film acting and stage acting, the stage-trained actors are going to be a hell of a lot better than the film-trained actors, which is not to take anything away from some major talents that are film actors. I don't mean that, but starting out, get all the experience on stage you can get. And if you want to be a stage actor, go to New York. If you want to make movies, go to LA.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Still even this day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's still all of the commercials that national big commercials that I know of are cast out of LA. There's always a few exceptions to that, sure. But pretty much all of the big advertising agencies go to LA for their commercials. And even though you may wind up going to LA, the movie you get cast in, assuming you get cast, could be shot anywhere in the world.
Right.
Another story.
Yeah.
I told you about my friend Gloria and her wanting to do this chocolate show, cooking show. Just before we did that, I had an audition for a Coca-Cola commercial. And the theme was, if you may recall, Coca-Cola at one point had a polar bear.
Yes.
With a Coke.
Sure. Right.
Well, the theme was an Arctic explorer comes up over a hill, and there's a polar bear with a Coke. So I auditioned for the part. And I've had hundreds of auditions for which I never heard another word. So I'm on a plane on the tarmac at LA, about to go to San Francisco with Gloria to shoot this chocolate cooking show. and my buzzer goes off from my agent, and I call her, and she says, "They want you for the polar bear commercial. You and another guy. You got to get over there. They really like you." I said, "I can't. I'm on the plane. We're taking off." She said, "You got to get there. You got to get there." I said, "Oh, Christ." So I called Joyce. She called. No, I told Gloria first, and Gloria said, "I'll put you on the plane back immediately." She said, "As soon as we get there, you'll be back here in 2 hours. You'll be back here." And they said, No, you got to be there at 9 o'clock or whatever the time was. So I called Joyce. Joyce says, "I'll pick you up. I'll get you there." Joyce calls the casting agent, and they said, "If he isn't here, forget it." She says, "Well, but he's on the plane. He'll be back here in an hour, 2 hours, whatever the figure is. Can't you get?" "No, absolutely not."
Seriously?
No. They like him. If he doesn't care enough to show up, then we'll cast the other guy.
He doesn't care. He's on a plane.
It was $500,000.
Are you kidding me? $500,000?
No, that's right.
I'd have broke a window to get out of that plane.
It was a commercial that was not going to be shown in the United States, but everywhere else in the world. So it was a complete buyout. So we're going to give you this money for unlimited showings.
Oh my God!
I was ready.
That'll keep you awake at night.
It did.
Oh my God! That's terrible.
Yes. But that's the nature of the business. So
Wow.
as I said, if you want to get into want to do commercials, go to L.A. Because you have no idea what's possible.
Well, tell them about Ryan. What happened to him after Sheldon?
Right. Okay. We had a young man that we cast in Developing Sheldon, Ryan
Gall.
Yeah, Ryan Gall. And he made the picture. He's a pretty good actor, good-looking young guy. And he goes to L.A. And all of a sudden, we're seeing him in commercials and in guest shots, national commercials.
Really?
And we're seeing him in network commercials, and we're seeing him in guest shots on, sitcoms. And boom, just like that, the kid's done like 18 national commercials. He's making money hand over fist, and he's on his way up. Now, it's been, 15 years at least?
He had about a 5-year block, I think.
Yeah.
But he's a millionaire.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and even if you never know his name you'd recognize him maybe, but you don't know his name, but he's had a career.
That's insane.
Oh.
That's insane.
He just packed his van like a month after the movie and just went.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He knew what he wanted. Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
but isn't there a certain amount of luck involved in that?
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yes. There's a huge amount.
Because I don't want to give anybody a false idea.
No.
You're just going to go outside.
No. There's a huge amount of luck in that, and I think it was Richard Burton has famously said there are probably 10 people that he could name that had the same talent he had, the same looks that he had, the same voice, not the same voice, but a good voice, good presence. Nobody knows who they are. They've been acting for 40 years, and here's Richard Burton, and here they are, and he said any one of them could be me, because they don't have anything I don't have, and they have everything that I have, and they're just haven't made it. And it is very much, as I said in the beginning, it's who you know and what you look like. And who you know is actually more important. I've been cast in 3 movies because of who I knew, not because of anything I did. The last A-list picture I did was in Alabama. Gloria was one of the producers, called me up and said, got a part, come on down. So I went down to Monroeville, Alabama for a movie called Heaven's Fall, playing opposite,
Hutton.
Yeah, Timothy Hutton, playing opposite Timothy Hutton.
No kidding.
Yeah, and Lily Sabowski, if you know who she is.
Yes, I do.
And, for a week, and just out of nowhere,
Nice to know people, isn't it?
Tell them how you get picked for Wild Wild West.
What?
Oh my God.
The movie with
Oh my God.
Barry
The
Sonnenfeld.
movie.
Yeah, Will Smith.
Yeah, Will Smith,
Barry
yeah.
Sonnenfeld, the director.
It was based on what he looked like.
This you're not going to believe this one, but I'm sitting home one day, the phone rings. In our apartment out in we lived at the Inland Inn, farthest inland you can go of Malibu Canyon. But anyway, phone rings, answer the phone. Voice says, I just want to confirm your appointment at Western Costume tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, for your fitting. I said, for what? She says, for Wild Wild West. I said, I'm not in Wild Wild West. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I've never even auditioned for the movie. I'm not. Your agent didn't call you? No. What are you talking about? So I hung up the phone, called the agent. Agent says, God, I'm sorry, Tom. I've been so tied up I didn't get a chance to get back to you. Barry Sonnenfeld was going through headshots, and he picked you for a part in this picture. I said, I never even auditioned. She says, it's what you look like. It's not what you're... Okay. So I go to... Next morning, I show up at Western Costume, and I cannot remember her name, but the woman who won the Academy Award for costuming Titanic.
Deborah Scott.
That's it. Deborah Scott was standing there, and I walk in, and she says, oh, Mr. Seiler, we've been waiting for you.
Seriously?
You know?
Oh, my God.
And she says, so 3 little Mexican ladies attack me and measure everything in sight, you know, and it's for a period tuxedo. She says, come back tomorrow, we'll have it for you. Okay. I come back the next day, and she dresses me, you know, make sure everything fits and looks good. And she's, you know, putting the ascot on and all this other stuff. And she says, now you know where you're going? I said, nobody sold me a damn thing here. And she says, no? Your agent? I said, no. I said, where's this thing being shot? And she says, Warner Brothers. I says, oh, okay, great. She says, she picks it, grabs her cell phone, calls my agent, and says, oh, okay. Be at such and such a gate at Warner Brothers tomorrow morning at 6:30, and somebody will meet you. Okay, fine.
Oh, my God.
So
Oh, my
I
God.
get there, and my name's on the list. The guy says, oh, Mr. Seiler, come on in. You know, they don't know me from a hole in the ground. And there's a guy with a golf cart waiting to take me to the sound stage. Stage 23. So we get to stage 23, and like everything else in this business, it's hurry up and wait. You know, it's probably 6:30, 6:45 the time I get 11 o'clock. They come out and so me and a herd of other extras go in. Barry Sonnenfeld's the director, the guy that did Men in Black. He cleaves his way through this crowd and says, "Ah, Mr. Seiler, right here."
Seriously?
No, I'm dead serious. Right here, camera's there. You're the camera, right here. You know, and he says, "You know your line." What line?
No kidding. Oh,
What
my
line?
God.
And he says,
fire agent.
calls the first AD over, and he says, the guy's got this. He says, it's hang 'em. I said, I think I can handle that. I'm pretty sure I can handle it. What's the cue?
Good question.
And he says, Sonnenfeld said, we'll run through it once. So we run through it. Hang 'em. Perfect. Okay. You know, we're going to shoot this one. So, first, the scene is when Will Smith is about to get hung, and he's trying to talk his way out of it. I assume you've seen the movie, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and he's doing this whole monologue thing about, you know, doing all the ladies' breasts and all that other stuff. And at the end of it, they cut to me, and I'm standing there with the hang 'em. No. And the movie comes out. Joyce and I go see it. I got 4 close-ups in this picture.
Really?
Yeah, 4 close-ups. And it's like, what? You know?
That's fascinating.
It's fascinating. And I'm blown away by this whole thing. How the hell did it... It's what
On
you
a
look
fluke,
like.
huh?
It's
Wow.
what you look like. You know.
That's
he
amazing.
wanted...
What, did you look different than you do now?
Nope.
Would you? Yeah.
Well, other than the fact that my beard was probably a little darker, you know, he wanted a quote-unquote Kentucky Colonel type look. And picked me, and you watch the movie, and I got 4 close-ups, and the line kind of gets stepped on, but that's okay. Who cares, you know? And
Isn't it odd seeing yourself on screen, on TV?
not anymore. The first few times, yeah, because you're kind of looking at yourself and
It's surreal.
It is. But I remember when we were going back to Men in the Iron Mask, I had a small part in that, and we're with Gloria in the they were looking at the rushes for to put the music in, and since I was one of the producers or associate producers on that with her. Of course, she did all the work. I was just sort of holding the fort there. And up comes one of the scenes I'm in, and she said, "Tom, the camera likes you." And how important is that? Because if the camera doesn't like you, you ain't going anywhere.
Right.
Gloria, beautiful woman, lovely girl. On camera, she looked like a chipmunk.
No kidding.
Her cheekbones were actually too high. She looked like a chipmunk, right, Joyce?
She looked
You know.
much heavier than she was
Yeah.
in real life.
In real life, you didn't. She's a lovely girl. You never notice any of this. The camera goes, boom, you go, oh.
Wow.
And I mean, that's not her fault. It's just the way God
Sure.
made her, you know. And there are people who are not photogenic, and there are people who are. Through the luck of the draw, I am with my beard.
Oh.
I'm not without the beard.
No kidding.
Yes,
No kidding.
yes, yes, absolutely,
No, that's fascinating.
absolutely. And who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, who knows why that is or how that plays out, but it's the way the eye sees it. It's going to be completely different.
That's intriguing. Very intriguing. So I know we early on I asked if you're doing anything, and you said not really. But in the back of your mind, are there things percolating? Are there things that are left undone that you really would kind of like to do, or that collaborations you're hoping to get done?
I wrote 16 scripts, movie scripts.
You did? Full-length movie scripts?
Yes. I've written 16, actually 17. I've adapted a couple for other people. I've written 16 scripts, and there are 2 or 3 movies that if I won the Powerball, I'd make tomorrow, that I wrote that I would like to see done. But I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah.
And that's another side of this business, is that if you write, it's easier to get an acting agent than it is to get a script representation agent. Again, back to Iron Mask. Oh my God, I can't remember the guy's name. Guy that played the Richelieu.
Lawyer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember. Well, anyway.
He was a literary agent.
Yeah, he was a literary agent, a friend of, his was a story all by itself, that he was English, had Bobby something, Robert something, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he had come to America as a young man and got a job at MGM as in the story department. And his job had been to go down at the end of the day and collect all the script writings that had been done and bring them up to the office so that people at the office could check and see if the script writers were writing the scripts they were supposed to be writing. And so he had worked his way up from that to the head of MGM's foreign office over in England, and it was somewhat of importance. And then decided that he'd rather be an agent. And so he had Henry Fonda and James Stewart and Robert Mitchum and all these people as his clientele. And then as the years went on, he was getting older, obviously, or we all do, and decided that it was easier to represent writers. So he became a literary agent. And I worked with him making this movie and knew that he was a literary agent. And I had never asked anybody for anything when I was out there, ever. And I finally said, you're a fool not to at least ask. So I asked him. I said, I have a script. Would you be willing to read it? He went, I was waiting for that, kind of a thing. But we sort of become, I won't say friends, but certainly acquaintances. Mm-hmm. So I read the script and sent it back and basically said, good script, I can't sell it. They're not making Westerns anymore, which is crap, but that's beside the point. You would believe the excuses people come up, well, we can't make that. They don't make period pictures anymore. And that year, there'd be 7 Academy Award nominations for, period films. But, I'd like to see 2 or 3 of the scripts that I've written turned into movies. But if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
And you direct this time.
Yeah. You like directing?
I've only directed one film. The very first film that I ever made back here, I directed it. And I think I didn't know what I was doing when I made that. It was a picture called Barrington Oak. It was a short made in 1975. a 45-minute movie. I didn't know what I was doing. Today, I think I would do it a lot better and have a better handle on the directing.
There's less compromise.
Yeah.
In what way? How does
If it's my project, I don't have to compromise.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So I see. So you don't have someone else chopping up.
When I see it, Steve is now passed on, and he was a good friend. We did 3 pictures together, as I said, and I liked him. I've been to his house. He's come and stayed with us. I mean, I liked the man, and he directed 2 of the films that I wrote. And I'm not taking anything away from Steve at all, and I'm not criticizing him, but the director has a different vision. And you're supposed to bow to the director's vision, I guess is the best way to put that. And this Hollywood story is rife with legends of writers who didn't agree and got replaced.
Right.
You know, even though
But
the
it has
writers...
to be hard, because what you've put down on paper has come from you.
Yeah.
You have definitely a certain vision of what...
And the writer's the one that created it in the first place.
Right.
But if it doesn't conform to what the director thinks it should be, there's dozens of, hundreds of stories of the writers getting replaced. He got paid, he's been paid for his work, he's bought his script, and blah, 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 and maybe he's going to get residuals, but he doesn't have anything more to say about it, about how it's made. And I had to do that with Steve, and Joyce thinks I was wrong, but
It was a
learning experience.
Yeah.
Every project you work on, you learn something else.
Yeah. We did one called Titled Murder, which we shot actually in Massachusetts, shot down in Salisbury.
Beach.
Yeah, Salisbury Beach and Amesbury, blah, 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 with Christopher Atkins and Maureen McCormick, Marsha, Brady Bunch. And Steve directed that, and I had co-written it with someone else, and I wound up having to produce it through the girl who was the actual producer for the movie. It was her money. The second day of the shoot, they were moving a generator, about a 2-ton generator, and the generator came loose from the car, and as they were in a parking lot, and the generator starts rolling towards this Mercedes, and she tries to stop it and got her hand crushed.
Oh my God.
So her brother comes back. We're all standing around because we're supposed to be making a move, to the next scene, location rather. And the director, her brother comes back and walks up to me and he says, "Well, you're going to have to produce the rest of this picture." And I said, "What are you talking about?" This one, Cindy just got her hand crushed and she's in the hospital. And that's, oh Christ, I don't even know where we're supposed to go.
Oh my God.
But
trial by fire.
Yeah. So anyway, we got the thing made, and again, Steve was directing, and again, it conformed to his vision. The way he thought things should look. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's wrong, but it wouldn't have been what I would have done.
Yeah. Well, you could end up with a totally different product then.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
end.
Yes, you can.
I mean, totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just made on the bones of what somebody had written.
Absolutely.
That'd be disheartening.
See, the original title of my film, Stage Ghost, was Adobe Station, and it was supposed to be more out in the desert. Well, we didn't wind up anywhere near the desert, And then they came along and said, "Oh, you can't use Adobe because that won't translate into some, like German and other. So you got to change the title." Okay. I'm driving across.
Compromise from the very first minute.
I'm literally driving across the top of Arizona or New Mexico, and I get this call. They're editing the film up in Toronto, and I get this call saying, "You got to change the title."
Oh my word! No kidding.
So you got about a phone call to think about it, And they said, "Well, how about Stage Ghost?" Because did you say you watched the?
I did. I saw the trailer.
So the stagecoach shows up with nobody in it, kind of a thing. So I said, "Okay, fine."
Man, oh man, oh man.
So it's all compromise. automatically, if you're going to make a movie, you're going to compromise. Even if you're the director, the producer, you're putting up all the money, you're still going to have to compromise.
Jeez.
At some point, for some reason. Another story about Steven Spielberg making Schindler's List. They got there in Poland, shooting in the concentration camp, and the Nazis who were in concentration camps wore a specific kind of uniform. They got there, and Spielberg's going, "Where's the uniforms?" I said, "Well, we didn't have the budget for it." "Why the hell didn't you tell me? We're here now." So we had to compromise and put them in more conventional uniforms.
How do you not tell Steven Spielberg?
That's a true story. You know.
Oh my God. It had to be one of those, you tell him. No, you tell him. You tell him.
Yeah, it probably
and it
was.
never gets done.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We didn't have the budget. What? You didn't tell me this 2 months ago? You know, we could have. He couldn't have come up with the money. Of course he could have, but
Right.
nobody told him. So we had to compromise.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare. Well, we're getting close to 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't we?
Oh,
Yeah, hour and 50?
oh, I don't know. Whatever.
All right.
It's up to you.
No, that's okay. I want to make sure that I've covered anything that you want to say. You know, you've got this vast background of
Stories.
life. Yeah, well, life, right? Right. And I don't want to let you go without you having some bit that you're like, before I die, someone needs to hear this. Or you're not a confession, but, you know, just some life thing that you might want to give to anybody who...
You know, I think that if you want to be a filmmaker, well, another name dropper, Charlton Heston said that making movies is the only art form in which the artist can probably not afford his own materials. If you want to be a writer,
That's
it's
interesting.
a paper and a pencil. You know, if you want to be an artist, it's canvas and a little paint and a brush. However, today, still going to cost you a little money. What you really need is a camera, and that's it. If you want to go out and make a movie, documentary, feature film, I mean, well, I want to call it feature, but I mean, you know, a dramatic film. What you really need today is just basically a camera and some common sense, because those things don't even need lights anymore sometimes.
Good point.
You know, they can shoot in such low light, and the only thing you then need to do is figure out wide, medium, close, wide, and stick to the language of film. So you don't need millions of dollars, you don't need $100,000, you don't even need $10,000. You can, whatever the cost of the camera is, and get your friends together and write a script, pencil and paper, and go out and make whatever it is you want to make, and you can edit it on your computer and put it into a film festival, and you never know what's going to happen. The Blair Witch Project is a perfect example. That movie was made for like 20 grand or something ridiculous.
Right.
And it made, what, $8 million or more?
Or more.
You know,
Spurned a sequel.
spurned a, yeah, right. So anything is possible.
And changed the industry to boot, the way things were
Yes.
done at the time.
Yes, because it became a well, it is essentially, a Blair Witch Project is essentially a documentary, you know, about what happened, and you never actually see anything
Right,
either.
right.
You know, so they didn't have to go out and make a monster.
That's right.
You know, it's all in the mind, and it's how it's done, and it's how it's shot. But anyway, the point is, you don't need vast amounts of money to make a film. You just need the inspiration and a little money to come up with a camera.
Tell a
And-
good story.
Huh?
Right.
And tell a good story. And there are people who are making movies on credit cards. You know, if you've got
Gamble.
a couple of $1,000s on a credit card, or 2 or 3 credit cards, but they're doing it, though.
Right.
There's a picture on either Netflix or, again, Amazon, that is advertised as having been made for $17,000, and that they sold it for $35,000, so they got their money back.
Man, that's not
You know,
bad.
No, not at
100%
all.
return.
Yeah. So,
Jeez. Joyce, did I get all the good stories out of him? Does he have anything left in him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet he does. I bet he does. Oh my gosh. Well,
I'll tell you one more.
yes, please.
One more. Through a set of circumstances, I was invited by a friend to go to the island nation of Cyprus and to write a story about the Cypriot struggle for independence from the British back in the 60s. Late 60s, early 60s, I guess it was early 60s. And so I went, and it was a marvelous experience. I spent a month in Europe, a week in Zurich, because the agreement that gave Cyprus its independence from the British is called the Zurich Accords, which were signed there. And a week in London, because all of the military actions between the British and the Greek Cypriots, Ioka? What the hell is it? Well, something like that. The name of the terrorist organization, so-called terrorist organization back in those days. All of the military actions were in the British Museum or in the Army Museum. So I went to do all this research, and then went and spent 10 days in Cyprus, where I was with the Prime Minister, and they showed me all of the areas, all of the sites in which the military actions had taken place. And the British don't come out very good on this at all. I mean, they hung a 14-year-old boy because he was carrying a message from point A to point B and didn't even know what the message was. And I took me into the execution chamber where he was hung, in the prison in which he was hung. I mean, it probably had more impact on me than my mother's death, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because you could just imagine the fear, and it was creepy, and at the same time it was heartbreaking, and at the same time it was awe-inspiring in a bad way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But the film never got made because I came back. This was in August of 2001, and I got home and discovered that I had the cancer that I had moved into my kidney. And we were packing our car to go to LA, because if I went to the all of my medical stuff was taken care of in the Motion Picture Hospital in Woodland Hills in California through the Screen Actors Guild Producers Health Plan, so it didn't cost me a dime. It's another good reason to join SAG, by the way. And we're in the process of packing the car to get on the plane, and my ex-wife, who happened to live next door, friends and all of that, comes out. She's hollering at me from the steps, and what's going on? I thought something had happened to one of her kids, and so I ran over, walked in just in time to see the second plane fly into the South Tower. And she says, "That's the plane I put you on." Yeah, that's the plane you would have been on if you hadn't been too damn lazy to get up in that early hour in the morning.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, that's a great story.
So I've never flown since. I figured I used up all my luck right there.
Mama.
Anyway, the rest of the story, blah, 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 about I got to go to California and my kidney, blah, blah, blah. Then I find out that the Prime Minister, who was the movement behind making this film, had come down with prostate cancer, and he'd resigned. So nothing ever happened.
This project was doomed.
No, but it was a wonderful experience.
Wow.
And going out and spending that time on Cyprus and being taken around and meeting. They had a party one night for 3,000 people with one table.
What?
No, now listen. It was on the beach, a place called Coral Bay, the Coral Bay Inn or Hotel or whatever it was. And it was a launch for a business called Pandora. And there was the biggest round table I've ever seen in my life, packed high with food and drink and everything else. And then over here, there was another long table that was just for the Prime Minister and the French ambassador and the German ambassador and the Greek ambassador and the Minister of Finance from Jordan, who was a billionaire, and me, and my friend who was married to the Prime Minister's daughter. So us three, and then all these other quote-unquote dignitaries. And I'm sitting across from the Jordanian Minister of Finance, and he says, "Are you minister too?" And I said, "No, actor." And he went, "Actor? American actor?" "Yeah." "John Wayne!" So we sit there and talk about John Wayne, and the rest of the table's listening. You know, John Wayne?
Oh my God.
He knows John Wayne? No, I don't know John Wayne. I wouldn't know John. No, I don't know John Wayne.
Wow.
But,
That's right where they go, though.
he was a huge Western fan, and at the end of the story, he says, "You come, Jordan, we go make movies." I said, "You're going to finance it?" And he said, "What?"
Yeah. Dang.
That's my story.
That's a good one. That's two good ones to end on. Man. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming by.
Well, you're very
Joyce, thank you
welcome.
for letting him come by. And thank you for reaching out. I appreciate that. I know there was so much more in there. I'd love to have you back.
Oh, sure. Pick a day.
Yeah. We should, because and what I'd like to do next time is have you back in to talk about what you want to. I mean, these are all questions that I had for you, but.
Well, no, you have to ask me, because otherwise I can't remember.
Oh, jeez. Well, we'll just bring Joyce back. She'll just keep prompting you
All
to
right.
say things.
Okay.
All right, my friend. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Well, thank you. It's been a...